And joining us is a man who's no stranger to the Observer, the Public Relations Officer of the United National Congress, Dr. Kirk Meighoo. A special good evening, sir, and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening to you and your viewers.
Yeah. So much is taking place, and well, I guess there's some congratulations in order for you and your team. I mean, it was indeed quite well, one would say a brutal local government election campaign. Now that the dust has settled, what's your take on how things, of course, ended?
Well, they are not ended as yet because I think a very, very, very important precedent is currently being set, and that's with regard to the EBC. What has been exposed, not only exposed in Langwa and Indian Walk, is we are actually finally fighting back the way we should. And just like when we took the government to court and it went to the Privy Council to force the local government elections, I think any court of law is going to come down very hard on the EBC for acting the way it has. And, for years, for decades, there have been all sorts of allegations. Other candidates have, called me and told me about how they've been frustrated by EBC officials and they just sort of gave up and, and they just thought it was an exercise in futility. And I think that has been the method of so many of these EBC officials to frustrate the process and just hope that the opposition gives up. And this time we are not giving up at all. And this is a very important thing that is ongoing right now. On the other hand, we are extremely pleased that we have been making serious and important inroads. Arima is a very important place we made inroads into, flipping that seat. And again, if you look at what happened in Arima, it was because there were seats that were counted for the PNM that went actually to, that were actually for the UNC, all sorts of curious things like that. And when we demanded the recount, we got that. Our movement into Sangre Grande was very important. Also into San Fernando, which we were only 47 votes away from flipping. This is very, very, very good.
Yeah, a lot of inroads has been made. And looking at the press release from the political leader, said that every vote counts, but can we count on the EBC? UNC political leader Kamla Prasad-Bissessar is openly questioning whether the public can have confidence in the Elections and Boundaries Commission. And of course, the opposition leader's concern comes on the heels of an election petition filed on Monday in the High Court of Justice. Let me ask you, Dr. Meighoo, what do you say to folks who would be saying the UNC is basically playing political victim, looking to see how best they can get some traction or some mileage out of it, always bringing concerns about the EBC, and some people, of course, may not understand the process, but say that a lot of these allegations are totally invalid and comes without proof. What do you say to them?
Well, we have many, many pages of proof there. And the court will show that this is not just old talk. We are going to the court, and the court will make a decision. I could perhaps see why people might have said that if we did not go to get an official ruling and judgment from the court, but that is not the case this time around. We will get an official ruling, and just like how the EBC, the Privy Council, chastise the PNM for saying that everybody has the right not only to vote in a government, but to vote out a government, and that Parliament cannot take away that right of people. Yeah. So they had to restate these principles very clearly because they somehow got lost in the mix under the PNM government. And the same thing is happening with the EBC. They are disenfranchising a voter. The whole point of the EBC is to enfranchise voters, not to disenfranchise them. And they must do everything in their power to make sure that people's votes are registered and heard. That is the function, that is the core function of the EBC. They seem to have got lost in their way. Some people with political agendas, we are coming out clearly and saying that now, very clearly. We're not beating around the bush about that. There are people with political agendas in the EBC.
In EBC. I mean, even for folks who are on the outside looking in, I mean, when you look at, based on the petition, some of the factors here, I wouldn't read all of them, but on Monday, 14th August 2023, the election day, the EBC announced that the PNM candidate was the winner of the election with 1,430 votes, as compared to 1,425 votes credited to the UNC candidate, Ms. Gopal. I mean, really and truly, when you see this announcement being made and seeing it's a victory, but then when the recount shows totally different, that issue of trust. Now, how dangerous would it be that at the end of it all, we create a culture is created where people simply say, I really don't, it doesn't matter whether I go or not, most definitely, or I believe it's going to be rigged.
Yes, that is the absolute undermining of democracy. Now, people may not, some of the younger people may not know that when we started out in Trinidad and Tobago, Eric Williams had Shoop voting machines put in Trinidad and Tobago, and that had all sorts of curious results, such as A&R Robinson in Tobago at one point getting more votes than there were voters cast. All sorts of irregularities were happening with these voting machines, and there were protests after protests. And finally, and in 1971, the no-vote election was very much about getting rid of the voting machines. And by 76, we finally did get rid of the voting machines. So this is not a new thing. And then we also have the experience of our neighbors in Guyana, who everybody knows there were, rigged elections since the 60s there. So this, and that was by the PNC government. And, and of the fact that PNM are very much aligned with the PNC government, even up to the point of last 2 years ago, when the government were not respecting the will of the electorate and engaging in all sorts of outrageous shenanigans to negate the election results. This is a very, very, very real danger. It has happened because people, and when I say it has, I mean the cynicism has happened a long time ago because people realized these things were going on, but we are finally taking an extremely historic, important action to get the courts to weigh in on this.
Yeah, and of course, also in the petition is the fact that saying for far too long the UNC has been complaining about the incompetence and bias of EBC officers. The fact that counts are conducted in secret gives ample room for perverse decisions to be made on ballots so as to favor one political party over another. Against weighing in on this, folks might say, well, if it doesn't go in your favor, perhaps you're going to cry foul, but if it does, there's going to be somewhat of a deafening silence. Does serious changes need to be implemented, and hopefully, I don't know, it may be wishful thinking, but hopefully before the general election is called?
Well, that would be great if something could happen before the general election in terms of changes. Hopefully the court judgment will wake. They didn't even want the UNC to observe the special ballots, the counting and sorting of, the sorting of the special ballots. And then when we finally used public pressure to make them reverse that decision, then we saw two of the ballot boxes opened and tampered with. And then Fern Narcissus Scope said that that's not a problem. They opened it in another process, and that it really had nothing to do with counting. This is absolutely ridiculous. They are not taking their jobs seriously. They are not taking their tremendous responsibility and treating that with the conscientiousness that is deserved. And hopefully this will be a wake-up call.
Yeah.
When we get into government next, we are going to have to seriously look at the EBC. My own personal suggestion, this is not a party suggestion, but because this is something I've looked at for a long time. I believe that the Elections Commission and Boundaries Commission should be separate, just like in many other Caribbean islands and other places in the world. They should be two separate commissions. And then, just as in the United States, maybe permanent political representation on it, so that the interests of the participating political parties are there. There are many things that need to be done, but I believe a radical overhaul is long overdue in the EBC.
Let me ask you, since functioning in the capacity of PRO of the United National Congress, I mean, how much broader has your back become? I mean, how much has it grown as far as dealing with folks who would weigh in on it and look for kinks in your armor?
Yes, well, it's had to grow to a Hulk size because so many, had so many attacks on me. But sometimes, I can take a step back and chuckle about it sometimes. And even there was some outrageous video that somebody put the other day on social media about me and the leader, apparently doing some illegal act like Rohan. So they were kind of parodying something that being seriously called to question about Rohan sitting and offering bribes. But I just thought that was actually kind of funny the way they did it, and I actually consider it a compliment, because if your enemies aren't attacking you, then you're not doing anything right. Then you're doing something wrong. Your enemies must consider you dangerous and worthy of attack, and when they do, then I know I'm on the right track.
But one of the challenges, of course, is, I mean, you approach on a daily basis. There are people who would tell you, look, Dr. Meighoo, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? How are you able to, look through all of that and see where definitely some of these things can work as far as adding to the political machinery for the party?
Yeah, well, I have very much tried ever since I became a PRO to widen participation. We've created several groups. I found people who were very active on social media defending the party, but they actually weren't part of the party in any structure whatsoever. So I reached out to some of them and made this kind of made a group where these people can participate, even though they are not actual members or they aren't actual people who are part of any party structure and whatnot. So there's a sense of involvement, and I always encourage them to get formally involved. And I mean, there are many suggestions all the time. I listen to them. I look at them. Some of them have very much have a lot of validity, and I follow them. But I also like to tell people who are who like to offer their criticisms and whatnot that it's welcome. It's welcome. I have no problem with it. But I think you should have skin in the game. I think people need to have skin in the game, because it's easy to say what should be done from the outside. But I invite everyone to come in. Let's get this implemented. If you have a change you would like to see in the party, come in by all means, and let's try to be that change and effect that change that we want, right? So if you want to see the party evolve in a certain direction, then come on in and let's work for that, right? And it's a democracy. Your ideas, people might accept it and move forward with it. Other times, you might not be able to convince everybody, but if you don't, that doesn't mean you pick up your marbles and leave and cuss the party. No, we're part of a team, and we respect the process. And if this time around your idea doesn't find favor, well, there will be other times in the future. So we have to have this sort of organizational discipline, this commitment, and we have to be able to learn to take a few sort of losses. We have to be able to compromise and we have to be working together as part of a
Yeah.
team. But I always encourage everyone who supports the party to join it and build it. And if you have ideas, we welcome them. I certainly welcome them in the public relations committee and the arm of the party, which I am heading. I have the honor of doing for the past couple of years, and I invite people to come in and help us in whatever way we can.
Understood. Final, moving forward, all get up, all ready for the next phase of the battle?
Yes, because now with this very important victory and the court judgment, which we are looking forward to, it is time now for us to take it for the general election. And hopefully that will come sooner rather than later. And we have a lot of work to do. We have to analyze the results. We have to be although we are very happy and congratulatory on the efforts of the party, we can always and must always try to do even better. And I am confident of a victory, but we want the victory to be as big as possible.
All right. Thank you so much for taking time out and linking with us here this evening. Best of luck to you and your entire team, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, and you as well. We appreciate all you do.
Thank you.